Alright, everything's okay. Everything's going through the omen paths properly. The relays are on. Thank you for the help, Murmur. Yes, well, with the desparking and the new planeswalkers that were created through the invasion of Phyrexia seemingly unaffected, and people wandering into other planes of reality due to the aforementioned omen paths being open, I figured it was time to someone to help folks learn about the multiverse that's suddenly been blown wide open. Yes, welcome, Omen Travelers and Sparkbound Adventurers, to the Walking the Plains podcast. In this first broadcast, we'll be covering the basics of all basics. But let this serve as a refresher for those that already know. And of course, for everyone else, it's a good foundation and a stable building spot. So, what is magic? If you haven't run into it due to whatever particular plane you come from, simple. It's the arcane arts, fueled by the 5 colors of magic, or 5 flames, or the 5 schools, whatever your plane may call it. Yes, the Wheel of Magic has many titles out there in the multiverse, but for brevity's sake, we'll stick to colors as I was taught, as it is the most common. The colors: white, the color of unity, structure, and morality; blue, the color of artifice, knowledge, and possibility; black, the color of ambition, amorality, decay; red is the color of emotion, of course, chaos and action; and last, but certainly not least, is green, the color of nature, of growth, and community. Now, for each of those 5 colors, they do have more detailed and nuanced philosophies attached to them, but we'll save those for later broadcasts. Now, magic is made of 2 major components when you want to cast a spell. That's right. Anyone who has had their Planeswalker Spark Ignite will know this, because magic will suddenly be available to you if it wasn't previously. So, here's how you tap into it, my dear students, as it were. The first thing you need is to gather fuel, the color. Certain colors, of course, are better fuels, and certain frameworks are easier for them to fuel. Let's start with an easy example. Healing magic. Something that most everyone will want to use at some point. Green and white need far less mana of it, and won't have secondary costs required to make the framework function. How do you gather mana? Well, you tap into a plane's ley lines. I'm sure those of you magically inclined are taught already, or with activated sparks can sense them. If you can't, I suggest meditation and finding areas where there's abundant, naturally occurring mana. Continuing with the example, green, go to things like forests or parks, areas with a lot of nature, as it were. After you find that ley line, to tap into it, dive into your memories. Let's continue. For those of you, moving the example over to white mana. To connect to the white-aligned ley line, this would be plains, cities, places with civilization, or where it's easy to fortify civilizations. You must draw on places that represent the philosophic memories of the color. Buildings to protect, of course, like mentioned a moment ago, in which society may flourish. From there, you will pour them into a framework, the idea of healing. After that, the spell should come quite simply, in fact. You will direct it through instinct at the target that you're intending, and from there, someone will be healed. With green, it is much the same, although the healing may not be true healing as so much as an accelerated growth. They may be temporarily stronger after the healing. Let's move the example over to a color that doesn't naturally heal very easily and look at black. Black mana, of course, as mentioned earlier, is the color of decay, of ambition and amorality. Well, it doesn't heal naturally, not very well at least. If you wanted to heal someone and you wanted to tap into black mana to do so, it will have a secondary frame cost to make the framework work. Likely some sort of self-inflicted injury to bring forth the idea of cost for one to benefit another, a common thing in black due to its ambition. From there, of course, we have to dive into what it means to create a framework from your memories. Your memories are yours. They're experiences you've had, places you've been. Tapping into these, remembering these things allows you to tap into the ley lines you can sense around you and pull forth the mana you need for your spells. This is why the longer you see a mage in a fight, the more extravagant the spells they are able to cast. They're able to tap further into the memories that resonate with the mana they are pulling and therefore pull more over time, allowing for greater and grander spells. The downside to this is you'll notice that they begin to cast less spells. They have less spells at the forefront of their mind. They may be casting a larger spell, but they're casting less spells overall, or less spells quickly. This is because that there's two ways spells are cast: memory and framework. Well, you can only hold so many frameworks in mind at a time, and those are easier to draw forward into your memory due to they being instinctively what you pull forward to defend yourself in an arcane fight, compared to the memories that generate mana, because those are personal memories. They are not useful necessarily in combat. They are not the way you would swing a sword. They are memories of childhood, of home, of grand plans coming together. Not the sort of thing you want to be thinking about when there's some angry warrior swinging his spear at you. Just not helpful. Now, from there, you have to, of course, mix and match, and this leads to the various effects of spells. Green and its ability to grow and its growth effects, even if when you intend to heal occasionally. Green, of course, also works best with creatures, with things that are natural. Its frameworks are very good at boosting them, summoning them, which we will talk about in a moment, or otherwise destroying unnatural things. Artifice. Blue specializes in dealing with artifice and drawing forth better memories, more memories. They run out of frameworks least often. Red is passionate. It can generate very quickly fast attacks and a lot of outward aggressive action with its memories and frameworks. White works well with creatures and plans. It's often diplomatic, allowing you to lock down a confrontational situation so you and your opponent could potentially discuss a way out of it or allow you to flee, and many other things. Let's wrap around to that summoning thing, by the way, that I brought up just a moment ago. See, green is very good at producing bringing more memories forward so you can produce, or use your frameworks faster and produce them. But to do that, it often uses creatures. Well, not necessarily the creatures in your environment, however. Summoning is when you take a framework that is based on a creature or person or idealized image of a thing you know, and you pour the appropriate responsive mana into it. Let's take the idea of a human knight, and you will find many of these across the multiverse. Well, what happens if you were to tap into your memories of civilized areas, of the gallant defenders of society? Well, of course, people get pulled in by those ideas, and that is the archetype of the knight you will summon. You are not summoning a person necessarily. You are summoning the idealized version of a gallant knight, and it will then fight for you. It is your creature. You have summoned it to protect you, as it would its masters in a knightly order, or the people it is sworn to protect. Change the example slightly. You pour in black mana, a knight of ambition, of glory. He will fight for you because you will bring glory to his deeds. That is the archetype, the ideal you have summoned. Now, you can potentially summon specific creatures. These colloquially are known as legends. These legends are people so important to their home plane or to multiversal events that they've created a permanent etheric imprint on the blind eternities, the place between planes. Well, when you summon these creatures, you need a specific mana, and you need to know about them so you can call in their framework. And they will operate as they did in life, working for you. These are summons that are a lot more willful and require some more finesse to work with, though they tend to be far more powerful than generics. So, maybe keep those in your back pockets if you ever meet someone of particular import. Of course, also how you see a person can affect how you can summon. A wizard you might summon as a scholar, and he will know and be able to do things as a scholar would. But if you summon him in the visage of a battle mage, he will do things as a battle mage would. A combatant, a caster of fire and fury. These things and these details matter when it comes to casting spells and defending yourself out there in the multiverse, dear listeners. Of course, not all of you are capable of casting spells, and, well, you don't need to be necessarily. Spells can be destroyed and hurt, effects can be dodged, and a sword through the chest is just as dangerous as any fireball. Just for those of you Sparks who have ignited, and those of you who are hearing this broadcast, be aware that the functions of casting spells out there in the multiverse to create magic is to take your memories and combine it with a spell framework at the forefront of your reflexive memory to defend yourself. Now, the mana you pour into it affects how those things manifest. This is very important to understand because let's take a directly offensive thing. We've covered a little bit of summoning lightly. We've covered healing. Let's take actual offensive direct damage magic. Pour in red. Red's very good at direct damage magic after all. It is the color of action. Well, it does not take very much red mana at all, nor to fuel that framework, to cast something like a lightning bolt. It's an effective, high damaging ability, and that you can cast a lot of them very quickly if you're a competent red mage person. However, let's take the other color that's got the most offensively oriented things, black. It takes more mana for a black direct effect to manifest, but it will either actively age or weaken a target, or it will straight up kill if you pour enough mana into it. It takes more mana than it does for red, but not that much more. Be aware, black mana users are very, very capable of outright assassinating targets. Now, not necessarily other planeswalkers and stuff, but your summons, they can unravel them very easily. To kill a person, to kill a planeswalker like yourself or those who travel the Omen paths, that's a bit more difficult. They may just prefer a knife. 'Tis what it is out here in the multiverse. Now, I mentioned red-aligned persons earlier. That's because everyone alive has a color alignment. Most people have one major color that they align to. This is because it most naturally maps onto your personality, which means it's easiest for you to generate and tap into the ley lines that create that mana. This is very important to understand for you newly awakened planeswalkers and those of you who walk the Omen paths. Now, you can kind of cheat to figure out what somebody's alignment may be. See, you'll notice in your travels that people who have a preferential color palette tend to lean into similar colors of mana. People who wear a lot of purple and black and blue likely have an affinity for black and or blue mana. No research is quite sure why this phenomenon happens, but it's an observable one. Keep that in mind. Of course, no color of mana is inherently evil, just varying levels of ambitious and moral, shall we say. Of course, not even being moral necessarily makes you good. Bad people still have morals too, children. Now, that means, back to the alignment, that means those of you out there have a alignment to think about. Is it red? Are you an impulsive person, full of passion and love, naturally quick to anger, but just as quick to forgive, just as quick to defend? Are you white aligned with hard morals, a religious belief system, and a preference to defend the little guy? Do you believe in community? Maybe. Are you green aligned? Well, community, knowing your place in the great cycle of all things, and believing that take it slow and take it cautious is a good way to go, and, never underestimate the wrath of nature. It can be quite unassuming until it poisons you. Are you like black, full of ambition, caring very little for hoity-toity moralities when what needs to be done is the job, and it doesn't matter how dirty it is? Or are you like blue? Do you like to learn? Are you logical? Do you seek perfection in the machines that you create and in the spells you cast. Well, all colors have an ideal, of course, or a form of protection they're supposed to, but mathematical perfection is really blues. That's the type of person you lean into. Well, I don't know, listener. I'm not you. But these are things that you should consider when learning magic from whatever mentors you may find out in the multiverse in your newly more accessible journeys thanks to the Omen Paths. And also, be careful where you step foot on those. Not all of them open up in a kind place. And as for the planeswalkers who were ignited to those blasted Phyrexians, I hope whatever plane you ended up on gave you a much more warm welcome than the one you left. I'll see you on the next broadcast of Welcome to Walking the River. I screwed up my first outro, didn't I, Murmur? I'll see you on Walking the Plains in the next broadcast.